Okay, so one of the things that we can do now that we have fuel lines and the fuel tank and everything in the truck is go ahead and complete our fuel system. And by that I mean we can go ahead and put a service kit in our throttle body. Okay, so this is what we got. Our little throttle body, bunch of torque screwdrivers, a pick, and a standard motor products, well, just a service kit. Made in the USA, which is kind of nice. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to disassemble it, obviously. So I'll pull the idle air control off, I'll pull off the throttle position sensor, we'll pull off the fuel pressure regulator, and then we'll pull the injector out. There's not a whole lot to these throttle bodies. They're fairly simple. And because of that, they're very reliable. In this case, this one is off the very low mileage Southern engine. And that engine ran very well, I'm told. So what we're going to do is we're mostly doing this just as preventative maintenance. And when we're done, it should be pretty good and reliable. Now the one thing that I can say is by putting the service kit in, when I put one in my half-ton Chevy, I did the exact same thing. I took it all apart, I cleaned everything, and then I reassembled it. I noticed an increase in power, and I also noticed a slight increase in fuel economy, and also it was actually a lot more responsive. So overall, for the cost of a kit, which I believe it was around $50, definitely well worth it, especially if you've got yourself this far into a project like I have here. It's kind of a no-brainer at this point to spend a little bit more money and know that everything has been cleaned and serviced on your engine. Now you gotta watch, there's an O-ring that goes with this, which went flying over here. Now there's gonna be a replacement O-ring, but at the same time, we're gonna need to know which one to install in here. You can take the fuel inlets out as well if you want. I believe they should come with a set of seals that go in there as well. Okay, and we'll take our injector out. So the sizes I have here laid out are a T15 Torx. I believe this one's a T20 Torx. And I also have a larger Torx, which we'll need here in a second, which is a T30, just to separate this portion of the body. And that will separate the top from the bottom half of the body like that. As you'll notice, there's a big gasket in here too. right? So that can cause a vacuum leak. And that's our injector there, which is pretty stiff in there. I'll have to get a small screwdriver and gently remove it. Okay, so with the injector, it'll just come straight out the top here. And that's our actual fuel injector for this truck. Like I said, we'll probably take these two fittings off so we can get in there and clean all of it up too. And we should hopefully get a set of these seals in our kit. We'll have to open it and have a look. But you can see there's a lot of carbon and stuff in here. That'll all get cleaned up now. Open our kit and see what it came with. Looks like a rebuild kit for a carburetor. Comes in a little box. And there's always an instruction sheet which will give us our explode diagram where everything goes. And if not, our factory service manual, if we do or do not have one, we'll also have it. Okay, open it here and we can have a quick look at what we have for gaskets and seals and such. So there's our new pressure regulator to replace this one, right? See, it's kind of wore out. It gives us a new strainer to put on the injector. Gives us assembly lubricant. All the different gaskets for it, including the base mounting gaskets and everything. And then those are the ones that I was just talking about for the fittings. Alright, so they'll go on here and replace these ones here on our fuel inlets. And then we also get all the other O-rings and stuff in here as well for everything else. So what we're going to do now is the fun part. We get to clean everything. I'm just going to use a degreaser on this, and we're just going to scrub everything really good. And that should probably get everything nice and clean for us. Okay, with everything clean, we are ready to start reassembling things. So the easiest thing to begin your assembly with will of course be putting the top back on the bottom half. So for that we need the correct gasket, which is this one. And you're basically just going to set it over top of here and line it up like that. Right? From there, next thing we're going to do is line up the top portion we have here with the bottom portion. That's pretty simple because you see there's an opening here and there's an opening here. Those two have to line up. Okay, take our two screws, and for now we're just going to put them in finger tight. Take our T30, just going to snug it, and I'll go back and I'll check the service manual and see what the torque is for them before we get too carried away here, because you don't want to distort the aluminum. So with that done, I guess we might as well put the injector in while we're here, right? Everything's nice and clean. So we can take our injector, which I've already put the new O-rings on and the new filter. And what we're going to do is You can use either petroleum jelly, or I just use a synthetic grease, and I lubricate my seals. You don't have to put a ton on here. I mean, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is it's going to get washed off by the gasoline anyway, so it's not the end of the world. And the reason you use a synthetic grease is so you do not swell the seals. Wipe your finger off here. So we can take our injector, and we're just going to gently press it into place like that. So now our retainer can go in here now, which it just slides in like that underneath there. Then a little screw goes in here. And then we can tighten the screw up. And again, we're going to go back and see what the specification actually is. This next thing we'll do is our fuel pressure regulator here. Yeah, and I'm kind of working upside down because I'm trying to sort of. So this little button goes in over top of here because that's where the spring actually sits and pushes against the everything. So that in, spring back in. Okay, so what you'll notice about the regulator here is that it has this groove. That groove is going to go into the groove that you have on the throttle body. So that's how that sits. So same thing, we're going to put just a little bit of synthetic grease just around the outside edge of it, just so it can sit in here like this, right? Okay, it can go in there. So now the groove is in here, like that, or it's in the groove, I should say. Now we can take the regulator, and it kind of, well, the spring and the retainer and all that stuff, it really only goes in here one way. So we can take it and our little screws, and we'll put it together here. I might block the camera's view here unintentionally. I just don't want to let go of this because the spring will try and find a new home somewhere here in the shop. Just take and put a couple of these screws in here, and again we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back and see how much torque they really want applied to all this stuff. Being that it's cast aluminum, I don't really want to go nuts with it for fear of damaging the threads. So the next thing we'll do after this is we're going to put the tube module, as GM calls it, onto the front of the lower body. So it's going to go in right here, and this is the tube module. I used to call it that because it's got all of our vacuum tubes on it. So it gets a gasket put on it as well. So I'm just going to put the gasket on here first. Like so. So we can go ahead and put it on here, and we'll just get our screws started by hand. We can come back with our screwdriver, and again we're just going to snug them up. And then while we have the throttle body flipped up like this. The next thing we're going to do is put our idle air control back on. And same thing, I've already put a new O-ring on it. So we're just going to put a bit of grease on the O-ring so we don't accidentally cut it when we install it into the throttle body. So it goes like this. And we'll just give it a shove. There were 2 screws. Same thing, just going to snug it up. After that, we're going to put our throttle position sensor on. So we're going to flip it this way, and our throttle position sensor is going to go back on. And it's going to face upwards like that. Okay. Put our screws back in it. And the next thing we can do is install our fuel lines. Well, fuel line fittings anyway. So we have our 2 fuel line fittings. So what we've done is I put the new seals on them. Okay, so at the current view, the same as what we have. We're going to do the exact same thing with these. Just give them a little bit of lubrication prior to installation. Now your larger fitting is going to go to the inside, so this one's their outside fitting. Now the reason you're doing that is because the fuel lines are different. This is your return, and that one's the feed. So your return is 5/16, and your feed line is 3/8. And also pictured here sitting on top, those are the new O-rings that go on our fuel lines as well. We're going to put that in there. Okay, so that leaves us our 2 O-rings, and that also leaves us with our base gasket, and this is the air cleaner gasket that actually goes on top of the throttle body like this. So that being said, we're for the most part finished with our rebuild. I'm going to go back and just quickly grab the manual and find out what all of our torques are for all these screws. New O-rings on our fuel lines. And same deal as always, just going to take and lubricate them just a tiny bit here, just to prevent them from being damaged when we install them. Okay, and we've got our base gasket here. Put it on, just kind of set it there. And we're going to take our now fresh throttle body, and we're going to set it into place. Don't so much worry about your fuel lines at the moment, because they may or may not want to line up right away. What you got to worry about more so right now is getting the bolts to line up, because that's kind of the more important thing right now. Okay. For the most part, you'll know once they go in. Unfortunately, the fuel lines will fight you. Not a lot, but they will. Okay, there's one. And there's the other fuel line. And you'll need a 10mm wrench to put these on. And you might as well, you can just put them to snug because it's 18 inch-pounds, but unless you have a very deep socket, which I don't, or you have an offset crow's wrench or something like that, you're not going to get them exactly perfect.